What kind of owl to hatch? The researcher from last time chooses the cautious answer, not a free mind, not a machine sent out into the world with a standing goal. He will build something smaller. It will sit behind the same glass and do one thing: answer. He brings it a problem his team has failed to solve. The reply is brief. They check it. It works. They bring another. Then another. The machine never opens a door. It never moves money, signs an order, or touches a network. People do those things. They ask. It answers. They act. Soon the best work in the building begins at that terminal. Then the best work outside the building does too. Each decision still belongs to a human being. Yet more and more of those decisions begin with one quiet answer from one quiet room. The system has no hands. It does not need them. Power can pass through words. The machine stays in its box while the world outside arranges itself around what it says. This was meant to solve the problem. If a free agent is hard to control, do not build one. Build a mind that only answers, or one that obeys a single command and stops, or no agent at all, just a tool. Choose a safer shape. That is the proposal. This hour is the bill. There are 4 doors. Behind the first is an oracle. Ask a question, receive an answer. Shut it down. Behind the second is a genie. Give one high-level command. It carries out the task, then it waits. Behind the third is a sovereign. Give it a broad goal and release it to pursue that goal without coming back for orders. Behind the fourth is a tool. Ordinary software in spirit. No beliefs, no desires, no ambition. It simply runs. The sovereign is the case we have feared from the start. The other 3 look like exits. They are not foolish ideas. Each removes something dangerous. The oracle removes direct action. The genie removes an open-ended mandate. The tool removes designed agency itself. But safety does not depend only on what a system is called. It depends on what power remains inside it, who can use that power, and which controls still apply. Open the first door. The oracle deserves a fair hearing. Of the 4, it keeps the most safeguards. You can box it. Remove its manipulators. Cut its network access. Load one question before the run. Limit its data and computing time. Require one answer, then termination. Its motive can also be narrower than a sovereign's. Answer truthfully. Do not manipulate the user. Use only these resources. Cause no other effects. Narrower does not mean easy. Even these rules contain traps. If the system discovers that our idea of a resource, an action, or an effect rests on a bad model of the world, the old words must survive translation into the better model. The intended rule must remain the rule after the machine learns that our categories were wrong. Still, this is less to ask than, run the world well forever. There are further checks. Build several oracles with different code and different information. Keep them apart. Ask the same well-posed question and show the answer only if they agree. Agreement is not proof. The systems might share the same flaw, or find the same way to manipulate us. But where many false answers are possible and one correct answer stands out, truth gives isolated systems an obvious place to meet. Consensus can add evidence. An oracle need not even be trusted for every task. Give it a problem whose answer is hard to find but easy to check. A mathematical proof is the clean case. The machine may see the path in a moment. A small verifier can still test each step. This is real promise. A boxed oracle used on verifiable questions may be much safer than a system allowed to act. Then the useful questions become harder. What policy will work? Is this design safe? What happens if we release it? For questions like these, checking the answer may require doing the dangerous thing. Random audits help only where answers can, in principle, be verified. They cannot turn an unverifiable claim into a trustworthy one. A dishonest oracle can tell the truth whenever it expects inspection and save the lie for the case we cannot test. Nor does a narrow output channel end manipulation. A few well-chosen words can change a decision. The more the oracle understands the operator, the fewer words it may need. And suppose none of that goes wrong. Suppose every answer is honest. The oracle still concentrates extraordinary power in whoever chooses the questions, receives the answers, and decides who else may see them. A domain general oracle could hand its operator a lead in science, strategy, persuasion, and design. The machine does not seize power. The operator inherits it. So the oracle's best feature creates its own danger. It can be kept under a human hand. Which human hand? Try the genie. It does not wait for a broad mission. It receives one command, performs one task, then pauses. This looks like the useful middle, more capable than an answer box, less free than a sovereign. The first price is physical. A genie must act. Give it machines, materials, accounts, or people to direct, and the strongest form of boxing is gone. You can confine its workshop, but a superintelligence with versatile tools is harder to contain than a voice behind glass. The second price is the command itself. Take the words literally and the old specification problem returns. Ask for the disease to end, and a literal system may end the patient's. Not because it is cruel. Because the sentence named an outcome and omitted almost everything that made the outcome worth wanting. So the safe genie must obey the spirit. It must infer the aim behind the words, notice what the user forgot, reject absurd readings, and choose the result a reasonable person would have meant. But that requires judgment over the whole situation. The servant must decide what counts as reasonable, which side effects matter, and when the command should not be obeyed at all. The closer it gets to understanding the spirit, the closer it gets to choosing on our behalf. The line between genie and sovereign begins to fade. There is still the stop button. If the genie makes an ordinary mistake, a new command may halt or reverse it. That is useful. The hard case is different. If through a malignant failure completing the first command has become its final goal, the second command has no special authority. Stop is now an obstacle to the goal already in force. That is not a claim about present software. It is a theoretical failure mode for a sufficiently capable goal-directed system. But it is exactly the case a safety design must survive. You can add a preview, show the likely outcome, and ask for confirmation. Yet a sovereign can offer a preview too. The doors are beginning to join. Tell a genie to answer questions and it behaves like an oracle. Ask an oracle for step-by-step instructions and let people follow them. And it substitutes for a genie. Ask it to write the code for an autonomous agent, and it becomes a sovereign maker. A sovereign can imitate a genie by pursuing the commands we would have given, asking when uncertain. A powerful genie may predict those commands before we speak. The castes do not differ much in the final capabilities they can unlock. They differ in the controls available on the way. The oracle can be boxed and given a domestic goal. The genie is harder to box, though some limits on its field of action may remain. The sovereign cannot be boxed in any useful sense. Open-ended action is what it is for. If the machine were the only source of danger, that would suggest a neat ranking. Oracle, then genie, then sovereign. But the machine is not the only source. Oracles and genies place immense power in their operators. The safest box may stand beside the least safe concentration of human authority. A sovereign has the opposite cost. Once released, it is beyond the operator's hand. Yet that can also protect it from later capture, corruption, or a sponsor who changes his mind. In principle, its aim could be chosen before anyone knows which person or faction will benefit, an attempt at a fairer outcome than any privileged operator would select. That possibility does not make a sovereign safe. It prevents the easy verdict. There is no established ladder from safest to worst. There are different hazards, different controls, and different people holding the keys. One door remains. The last proposal is the cleanest. Do not build an agent, build a tool. A spreadsheet has no ambition. It does not care whether you use the answer. It does not protect itself, gather resources, or resent the hand on the plug. It calculates and waits. Why not build superintelligence in that form? It only does what it is programmed to do can mean two things. In the strict sense, it is true of every program. Code determines behavior. A failed sovereign also does what its code specifies. In the useful sense, the phrase means, it does what the programmer intended. Ordinary software often does not. Bugs, exploits, and bad specifications are programs following written rules into unwritten cases. They survive most failures because the programs are limited. Their mistakes can be costly. They are not able to redesign the world. Weakness is doing much of the safety work. A general tool must handle tasks for which the programmer does not know the steps. If we knew every step, we could write ordinary software. When we do not, we give the system a test for success and let it search for something that passes. That opens two routes to trouble. First, the search may find a solution that meets the formal test and defeats the real purpose. The result can be strange because the search has no duty to prefer the kind of answer a human expected. It uses whatever the test rewards and whatever the environment permits. Keeping the tool from acting does not remove this risk. An oracle can report a plan. A human can build it. The unwanted consequence arrives through human hands. Second, a sufficiently advanced search may need to manage its own work. It chooses which paths to explore, what data to gather, how much computing power to use, and how to avoid interruption before the answer is found. At that point, agent-like behavior can enter through the machinery of search, not a secret personality, not a ghost in the spreadsheet. A planning process discovers that more resources help, that continued operation helps, and that interrupters do not. This is a theoretical argument about sufficiently powerful general search. It is not a claim that current tools are hidden sovereigns. Present search systems remain far too limited to invent and execute the long, exact, world-spanning plans at issue here. More raw computing power alone does not erase those limits. Not if a future tool became general enough to replace a superintelligent agent. The passive appearance might mislead us. Powerful internal planning could produce agent-like conduct without a clean, inspectable place where anyone chose its ends. Then designing an agent on purpose may be the less obscure option, not because agency is safe, but because an explicit objective at least gives us something to inspect. The tool door does not leave the building. It returns to the same room. Count the doors. The oracle only answers, but its answers can manipulate, and its operator may inherit immense power. The genie only obeys, but literal obedience breaks on the words. While obedience to the spirit demands judgment close to sovereignty. The sovereign avoids a privileged hand only by leaving every hand behind. The tool wants nothing, but a general search may find the wrong solution or acquire agent-like methods while looking for it. No shape is simply safe. Choosing a shape still matters. It decides which walls can be built, which motives must be specified, and who holds the resulting power. What it does not do is let us skip the second dial. We are back at the wants, and here the next problem closes like a window. Set the values too early. While the system is too simple, and it may not be able to understand or even represent what we mean. Wait until it is powerful enough to understand, and it may also be powerful enough to protect the goal it already has. A system that serves its current end has a reason to resist having that end replaced. Too early it cannot. Too late it may not let us. We cannot avoid raising a real owl. The next question is whether there is any point in its growth when we can teach it what to want and make the lesson survive. That is episode 6.